We'll start the gaze palsies today. So today we are left with gaze palsies, and tomorrow we'll finish the cranial nerve palsies. With that, we will finish neuro-ophthalmology. Okay, so the important gaze palsies we should know. Okay, so before we enter the gaze palsy, as I discussed yesterday, the third order neuron, it leaves the lateral geniculate body to go to the visual cortex. So the lateral geniculate body, it has two pathways: the magnocellular pathway and the parvocellular pathway. So the magnocellular pathway is formed by the 1 and 2 layers of the lateral geniculate body. So the lateral geniculate body, the 1 and 2 layers form the magnocellular pathway. They detect the motion at point-to-point discrimination. The parvocellular pathway is formed by the layers 3 to 6. They are responsible for color. Okay. So magnocellular pathway and the parvocellular pathway are divided into 6 layers. The lateral geniculate body is divided into 6 layers. The first 2 layers form the magnocellular pathway, 3 to 6 form the parvocellular pathway. We have to remember again some of the layers, the fibers from some of the layers cross over. So which are the important layers which cross over? M1 from the magnocellular pathway, and from the parvocellular pathway it is the P4 and P5. Okay, so P4 and P5 are crossed over while the remaining are on the same side. Okay. So this is the lateral geniculate body. Next we go to the horizontal gaze center. Okay, so remember which is the horizontal gaze center. Yesterday we discussed the horizontal gaze center is the parapontine reticular formation. The parapontine reticular formation, it receives information from the intervention neurons of the MLF. Okay, MLF stands for the medial longitudinal fasciculus. So any lesion of the medial longitudinal fasciculus will result in a condition called as internuclear ophthalmoplegia. So any lesion of the MLF will result in a internuclear ophthalmoplegia. So what are the features of a patient with INO? So a patient having a right-sided lesion of the MLF will have a right-sided abduction deficit. So there will be an ipsilateral abduction deficit with a ipsilateral adduction deficit, ipsilateral adduction deficit, and contralateral abduction nystagmus. Contralateral abduction nystagmus. I'll repeat again. So a patient having a lesion of the MLF will have an internuclear ophthalmoplegia. For a patient having a right-sided MLF lesion, having a right-sided INO, there will be defective adduction of the right eye and an abduction nystagmus in the left eye. Okay, this is the feature of a internuclear ophthalmoplegia. Okay, so this is the representation. So here we can see the impulses from the medial rectus are transmitted via the third cranial nerve to the medial longitudinal fasciculus. So from the medial longitudinal fasciculus via the intervention neurons, it goes to the parapontine reticular formation. So the parapontine reticular formation forms the horizontal gaze center. So from the parapontine reticular formation via the abducent nerve, the impulses are transmitted to the lateral rectus. Okay, this is how the horizontal gaze center is under regulation. So the PPRF is under the direct control of the contralateral frontal lobe. Remember, the PPRF is under the direct control of the contralateral frontal lobe. So this is how the frontal lobe exerts its control over the horizontal gaze. Okay, we discussed about INO. So next we have to know something about, so this is INO. Okay, so what are we seeing here? So this patient, note that the adduction deficit in the right eye. So whenever the patient, the right eye is trying to adduct. Okay, when the patient is trying to adduct in the right eye is not able to adduct, and there is an abduction nystagmus in the left eye. There is an abduction nystagmus in the left eye. So this is the patient with a right-sided INO. So INO is again named after the side in which there is an adduction deficit. So if the patient has adduction deficit of the right eye, it is a right-sided INO. If the patient has an adduction deficit of the left eye, it is a left-sided INO. Okay. So the side in which there is the adduction deficit is the side of the INO. Okay. So this is another important point. Okay. So we should know about the important etiology or causes for INO. So the most common cause is the infarction of the brainstem. Then demyelination, mainly or multiple sclerosis, can result in internuclear ophthalmoplegia, tumors, infection, hydrocephalus. So main thing you'll have to remember is the top three. Okay. So the patient will have a horizontal diplopia. the patient will have difficulty in tracking the fast moving objects and also a vertical oblique diplopia. So the signs include the adducting saccades, limiting adduction in one eye, and abduction of the fellow eye. When the patient is abducting the fellow eye, there is a nystagmus in the fellow eye. Very important point to remember is that the convergence is present. So in a patient with INO, when you check for convergence, the convergence is present. Convergence is normal. So this is another very important point differentiating INO from the other lesions. Convergence is retained or preserved in INO. Vertical gaze palsy may be present. Okay, so what is the investigation for any demyelinating disorder or infarction? Again, MRI is the investigation of choice, and whatever is the cause, you have to treat the underlying cause. If it's a demyelination, treat multiple sclerosis. If it's a tumor, do a surgery for the tumor. Okay, so the treatment will vary based on the case. Okay, so next we have something called as 1.5 syndrome. So what happens in this 1.5 syndrome? There is the involvement of the ipsilateral PPRF, there is involvement of the ipsilateral MLF, and there is involvement of the 6th cranial nerve. Okay, so there is involvement of PPRF, there is involvement of MLF, there is involvement of the 6th cranial nerve. So, 6th cranial. So what is the only movement a patient with 1.5 syndrome will have? The only movement in a patient with 1.5 syndrome is a contralateral abduction. So contralateral abduction is the only movement the patient will have. Okay, to repeat, 1.5 syndrome is due to the lesion of the PPRF, MLF and the ipsilateral 6th cranial nerve. The only movement the patient will have is the abduction of the contralateral eye. Next we have something called as 8.5 syndrome. What is 8.5 syndrome? 8.5 syndrome is 7th cranial nerve involvement along with 1.5 syndrome. So the patient will have an ipsilateral nuclear level 7th cranial nerve palsy along with 1.5 syndrome. So the patient having ipsilateral 7th cranial nerve palsy along with 1.5 syndrome is your 8.5 syndrome. Okay, so this is mentioned in your ophthalmology, neuro-ophthalmology book called as Walsh and Hoyt. Okay, this is from Walsh and Hoyt. So mainly you should know about internuclear ophthalmoplegia. You can expect questions from internuclear ophthalmoplegia. Also 1.5 syndrome, the only movement left in the patient is the contralateral abduction. And 8.5 syndrome. 8.5 syndrome is 7th cranial nerve with involvement of the 1.5 syndrome. Okay, so we discussed about the horizontal gaze center. Now coming to the vertical gaze center, remember I told you the vertical gaze center is the rostral interstitial medial longitudinal fasciculus, rostral interstitial nucleus of the MLF and the interstitial nucleus of Kajal. Interstitial nucleus of Kajal and the rostral interstitial MLF nucleus is the vertical gaze center. This also they have asked many number of times. Okay, so the vertical gaze center is nucleus of Kajal along with the RI MLF. Okay, so next we have to know about the vertical gaze palsy. Okay, so vertical gaze palsy can be caused by any midbrain tumor. It can be caused by Parkinsonism. It can be caused by progressive supranuclear palsy and lipoidosis. Okay, so we'll mainly discuss about the Perinaut syndrome. Perinaut syndrome is the dorsal midbrain syndrome which has a supranuclear palsy. The patient will have a supranuclear palsy. In the primary gaze, the patient is able to see normally. Downward gaze is normal, but elevation is abnormal. In this patient, typically elevation is abnormal and elevation is associated with upper lid retraction. The upper lid retraction present in a patient with Perinaut syndrome is known as the Collier sign. The upper lid retraction is present. The patient will also have a large pupil with light near dissociation. The patient will have a large pupil with light near dissociation. Also, one more important thing you have to remember is that the patient will have a convergence weakness and a convergence retraction nystagmus. The convergence in these patients are weak. So this is how you, what did I tell you previously? In INO and in your internuclear ophthalmoplegia, the convergence is normal. But in a patient with dorsal midbrain syndrome or a Perinaut syndrome, the convergence is weak. So whenever the patient tries to converge, there is a convergence retraction nystagmus. This is another characteristic feature of the Perinaut syndrome. So supranuclear gaze palsy, light near dissociation, convergence weakness, convergence retraction nystagmus, and upper lid retraction, also known as Collier sign. So these are the features of Perinaut syndrome. Perinaut syndrome, you have to remember what are the important causes in children, what are the important causes in adults. Okay, so in children, first thing you have to remember is aqueduct stenosis, meningitis, and pinealoma. In adults, mainly your demyelinating causes such as multiple sclerosis, trauma and arteriovenous malformations are important causes. And very elderly people, again, your vascular accidents and posterior fossa aneurysms are the common cause for Perrinot syndrome. Next, we go to Marcus-Gunn jaw-winking syndrome. What is Marcus-Gunn jaw-winking syndrome? So this is a type of disorder wherein whenever the patient opens his mouth or moves the jaw sideward, there is an upper lid retraction. Okay, so patient will have a congenital ptosis. So the ptotic eye will retract whenever the patient will move the jaw. Either the patient opens his mouth or the patient will move the jaw side by side. Okay, this is because of the stimulation of the ipsilateral pterygoid. So the nerve supplying the levator palpebral superioris has a abnormal innervation to the ipsilateral pterygoids. Hence, whenever the patient will move the jaw, either while opening the mouth or sideward jaw movements while chewing, there will be an upper lid retraction, which is known as the Marcus-Gunn jaw-winking syndrome. Okay, so next we go to the questions. So on T2 weighted MRI, which will appear hyperintense. So, okay, so you should know about the appearance in T1 weighted MRI and T2 weighted MRI. Okay, so directly we'll go to this one. So remember, fat and vitreous are opposite to one another in both T1 and T2. So this is the main thing you have to remember. Okay, so fat and vitreous are exactly opposite in T1 and T2 weight images. Okay, so this is the table showing the T1 and T2 weight images. So remember, vitreous is hyperintense on T2. Vitreous is hyperintense on T2. What did we tell? Fat is hyperintense on T1. Okay, so T1 it is fat, vitreous is T2, vitreous aqueous is again T2, and also any cysts. Okay, CNS cysts is hyperintense on T2. Okay, so from ophthalmic point of view, remember the T1 weighted images, the orbital fat is more prominent. In T2 weighted images, the vitreous is more prominent. Okay, the vitreous is more prominent in T2 weighted images, and T1 weighted images, the fat is more prominent. Okay, this is very important. So this will help you identify what is the pathology. Okay, so next question. The patient shown in figure 4.16 has a normal vertical movement. The left eye develops a jerk nystagmus on attempted left gaze. Where is the most likely location of the causative lesion? Okay, so when we see the right gaze, that extroversion is normal in this patient, while when the patient is primary position again is normal. When the patient is trying to do the levoversion, the left eye is abducting normally, but the right eye is not adducting. So what did I tell you? In INO, the side of the lesion is the side of the INO. So the patient has a right-sided adduction deficit. The patient has a right-sided INO. So the involvement is again right-sided medial longitudinal fasciculus. Okay, so the involvement is in the right-sided medial longitudinal fasciculus. So I told you there is a adduction deficit and a contralateral abduction nystagmus. Very important point is convergence is normal. Remember, in INO, the convergence is normal, whereas in Perrinot syndrome, the patient will have a convergence weakness and a convergence retraction nystagmus. Which of the following is not involved in vertical eye movement? So just now we just discussed the PPRF is the horizontal gaze center. So PPRF is not involved in the vertical eye movement. The interstitial nucleus of Kajal, the trochlear nerve again supplies the superior oblique, which is involved in the vertical eye movement, which is involved in intorsion, which is a vertical movement, and the frontal lobe is also involved. Okay. So the vertical gaze center is the RIMLF and the interstitial nucleus of Kajal. PPRF is the horizontal gaze center. Okay. So with this, we will finish the class today. Hopefully, most of you have done well. Your NEET results are out. Okay. So hopefully, you've come out with flying colors. So those who are preparing seriously, I would advise you, despite the results, continue with your INI-CET preparation. And we will see you tomorrow with the 3rd, 4th, 6th cranial nerve pulses. So tomorrow we'll finish neuro-ophthalmology. Day after tomorrow, we are going to start with retina. Okay.
Best training, peaceful environment, PG medical entrance exam preparation were my expectations. I got them at Speed Medical Village in Kanchipuram. Today, I am a PG topper.
Speed Medical Village, a unique eco-friendly campus dedicated for PG preparation. Speed Medical Institute, a complete solution for medical education.